Thank you for tuning in today on Real Talk with Dr. Rollins-Fells, where I'm your host. We are going to be speaking today about too much treble and not enough bass. Have you ever had a moment in life where it just seems so noisy that you can't groove with it or rock with it? Well, you're going to want to stay tuned so that we can discuss it today on Real Talk with Dr. Rollins-Fells. I'll be right back. Real Talk with Dr. Rollins-Fells. It's a place where we're going to have honest conversations that reframe reality, empower vision, activate faith, and liberate legacy. I'll see you then.
Strategically Inspired Solutions is your source for personal and professional development services. Our dedicated team of transformational coaches, speakers, and consultants know how to drive innovation and deliver high-impact results. In our one-on-one or group coaching programs, you will discover and design the authentic life you have always desired. Strategically Inspired Solutions also offers comprehensive consulting services to small, mid-size, and large firms. We invite you to join our family of clients and partners by visiting our website at www.sysmotivation.com. We look forward to working with you in creating a newfound purpose, vision, and energy for yourself, your company, and within your communities.
And welcome back here on Real Talk with me, your host, Dr. Rollins-Fells. And today I have a special guest joining us, none other than the lovely Jordan Rollins-Williams. Hi, Jordan. How are you today?
Doing pretty great.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, today's topic is going to be about an incident that I had recently where we were installing a new radio into the vehicle, and I get in the truck and the music is really loud and there's no bass. And it sounded like a bunch of noise. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yes. It just sounded off. And so, of course, I had Jordan to go into the settings and adjust what needed to be adjusted. And you finally got me straight. But we both agreed that that was not how we prefer to have our music. Is that right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so with the topic, too much treble, not enough bass, let's really jump into what that means. Now, I want you to stay with me because I'm going somewhere with this real truth. So, Jordan, I know you have a background in music.
Mm-hmm.
And so could you tell us 1, 2, 3, what your experience has been with music again?
In middle school, I was in band all through 6th to 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in band my whole high school career. Started marching band my freshman year on the bass drum.
Yeah.
Continued that my sophomore year, and then junior year, I was the drum major, so I was in charge of the whole band.
Awesome. And so as the drum major,
Mm-hmm.
your role was to do what?
As far as music goes, I had to kind of listen to the parts and figure out, okay, how does this complement this, and how can we change to make this better, and what can I do to bring this out? And then marching wise, making sure everybody knew where their spot was, how to get there, and things like that.
Awesome. And so all of our viewers may not have a background in music. And so could you talk to us just a moment from your perspective about what the difference is between treble and bass?
So without getting into the science of it, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
treble and bass are both a kind of clef.
Mm-hmm.
Treble instruments usually they're higher. They have more of the melody, the moving parts, the melody being like the main part that you hear.
Mm-hmm.
And then instruments that play the bass clef, they're lower as far as tone and pitch goes. They don't really play a lot of moving parts. They don't have like the runs and the trills and things like that. They typically have a one main beat kind of part that they play throughout the whole piece, and that's to complement the other treble pieces.
Gotcha. So let's break it down and keep it simple. So we have treble, and those are higher instruments, and there's lots of moving parts within that. And then bass clef, Those are going to be your lower instruments,
Mm-hmm.
and their job is really to keep the rhythm and keep it anchored as it's transitioning through.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give me an example of a treble instrument?
Like the flute,
Okay.
clarinet.
I can hear that in my, can you hear that in your mind? I can hear the melodies of certain songs
Mm-hmm.
and that going along with it. Okay. And then give me an example of a bass instrument.
A tuba, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Euphonium, things like that.
Yeah, I just had a visual in my mind of our church choir and our bass guitar player. You know, every bass guitar player, they have that groove with them, right? They have that swag and they kind of rock with it. And so thank you for explaining that in musical terms. And so while we're talking about music, what's your preference in music? Because we all have different styles that we like.
I don't know. I gotta listen to a lot.
Okay.
But I'd say most prominently is like pop, R&B, hip hop, rap.
Awesome. Who's your favorite artist right now?
Right now?
Yeah.
Harry Styles.
Harry Styles. Yes. She's being honest, everyone. And for those of you who may not have caught Jordan on a previous episode, Jordan is my daughter. And so she is a very big Harry Styles fan right now. We all know the song. She actually got a record player and a record for Christmas. And so just trying to cultivate that appreciation and that love for music. And so when you are directing or in your jam session, do you prefer to have your treble louder or your bass louder?
Definitely the bass.
And so why does the bass resonate with you?
Honestly, I think that because I am a percussionist, that's my thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I listen to when I'm playing. So that's what I listen to when I'm just listening.
That's good. That's good. And so I know for me, when I was growing up, there would sometimes be songs and my mom would hear them on the radio and say, "What are you listening to?" And now I'm finding that sometimes I sound like my mom.
Yeah.
Like, what is this? And my response then and her response now a lot of times is, "Mom, I'm not listening to the words. I'm listening to the music." And she's rocking with the groove in it. And so while I'm talking about music, this first entire segment and instruments and the technicality of treble and bass clef, I am using it to make your mind go to a place where I can build a bridge now. Okay, so the bridge and the place that I want us to go is how life is very much like an orchestrated piece of music. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Definitely. Absolutely. You think so? And so when we look at life, in the moving parts and the high pitch and the things that are going on, that for me, when I take it back to coming in that vehicle with no bass, it sounded like noise. And so what are some things from your perspective that would represent the noise in life that people your age have to deal with?
Social situations, definitely. School, just as a whole, the people in school, the actual work, dealing with teachers and adults. But I also say dealing with adults can be its own separate.
That's real talk. That's fair. That is fair. That's fair.
Yeah. And navigating like friendships, you have your home life, your family life that you have to also deal with. It's just a lot.
Awesome. And so sometimes when that treble, as we'll call it, is turned all the way up, what does that feel like? What does that experience actually feel like?
It can be overwhelming, definitely frustrating when you can't figure out like what's going on or what you need to prioritize. And it really is just, it feels like noise. Like, what do I do with this? So.
In your experience, have you sometimes listened to tracks where they're done in pieces? Yeah. And have you had any experience coordinating them or putting things together and then figuring out what's wrong about it?
Yeah. So directly related to music, like I was saying with marching band, our show did sound like a whole bunch of noise at first because nobody knew what they were doing. But then after like looking at it and listening to it piece by piece, being able to find, okay, this is how this connects, this is how this works, made it actually sound like music. I think that goes the same for life.
I would agree. And so we're going to come back in just a moment and we're going to talk about how to coordinate all of those different pieces and turn the bass up a bit. We'll be right back. and welcome back here to Real Talk with Dr. Rollins-Fells, where I have a very special guest who happens to be my daughter, Jordan Rollins-Williams. And so thank you again, Jordan, for joining us. Before the break, we introduced the whole musical concept of treble versus bass and the role that it plays. And so you were telling me from your band experience and experience conducting and working with music that treble, those are the moving parts. They tend to be higher pitch. And then the bass parts are really your anchor pieces and they keep the tempo. And so in this second segment, I want to talk about how do we adjust, because the title was Too Much Treble, Not Enough Bass. And so let's spend a little bit more time on that bass piece and how bass is really the anchor. So when you're conducting and you start a new measure, what does your hand do?
It goes down. So that's beat 1.
So this is beat 1?
Yeah. So this is coming up from beat 4 and down on beat 1.
Up from beat 4, down on beat 1. Okay. 1. All right. And then where do I go for 2 and 3?
2, you go in.
In.
And then come back.
Come back.
And then 3, you go out.
Out.
And then come back.
And come back. And then 1.
Yeah. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2,
3, 4, and 1.
Yeah.
Thank you for showing me that. Now I think I'm a conductor. I'm going to be doing this all day.
Oh
and
my
1. And so my point is that bass is what is going to anchor. Is that right? And so when you're conducting the band, what I'm hearing you say is that everybody, even if they get lost, they are still going to be looking for your hand to go up and come back down. Is that right?
Yeah.
And so what I want to share with the audience is that I just thought this parallel was so profound, is that as you are listening to the treble and the bass, if you don't know what this point is in your life, we have to identify that. And that's real talk, okay? This is your anchor. So where is the beat dropping for you that you can count on, that you know no matter what else is happening, that you can come right back here? Are you following me? I told you I was going somewhere with this. And so, Jordan, what anchors you when that beat drops in life?
Well, there's a lot of things, but I think most prominently would be my relationship with God. We have a club out at my school called Impact Club.
Okay.
And basically what that is a group of young adults from, around our area that kind of come together, and they come to our school and they come during our lunch times and they give us messages and they pass out free Bibles and give us donuts, just to kind of spread the love, if that makes sense.
And feed you at the same time.
Right.
That's pretty awesome.
So we have Impact Club during lunch about every other week or so.
Okay.
So I'd say that would probably be my anchor point.
Do you find that as you're engaging with your friends that that they have similar anchor points or different anchor points?
Yeah, mostly similar. But I think you can have multiple. Because it's not just beat 1. If you get lost on beat 1, you can look for beat 2. Or beat 3 or 4.
That's good. Tell me more. Tell me more.
So for some of my friends, we have the same beat 1, but my beat 2 might be, I don't know, taking a nap. And for them, their beat 2 is going outside.
Right.
Or a soccer game. Like that's their thing. So it can be different.
That's awesome. And so for the viewers at home, I think Jordan brought out a really good point that there's a 1, 2, 3, and a 4. And while that 1 is doing a big drop, and she said for her, it's her faith in God, she's shared some other examples about things that can anchor you as well. And so for me, God is definitely my major beat drop. I look to expect it. I know that it's coming. It doesn't matter what else is going on. I know that I can expect God to be all that he says that he is to me. Another thing that anchors me is cooking. I love to cook. And so can you describe just really quickly what cooking looks like in our household around holiday times?
Gosh, there's music blaring, holiday themed.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's
What about the
food
menu?
Everywhere.
Yeah, food is everywhere.
It's an extensive menu.
Mm-hmm.
It's long.
Mm-hmm.
and it's a variety of things. There's no set.
That's true, because it's all depending on whatever I need at that moment. And so she's being very honest. So food is another way that I anchor myself, because I can get in my kitchen and I can create. And sometimes it's creating with whatever I have. Sometimes it's setting the timer and having a challenge with myself. But holiday time is definitely where I re-anchor. It shows me that my family is why I'm working as hard as I'm working and why I'm engaged in all of the things that I'm engaged in. And when I cook, it allows me time to process and pour that love back in. So Thanksgiving generally has that turkey, that stuffing and gravy, and then you have the ham that has to be with the potato salad and the collard greens.
Mm-hmm.
You follow what I'm saying? So we really have two different menus going, but there's something there for everyone, because that's what anchors me. And so I would encourage you to find out what anchors you so that you can find your groove in life. Oh, I messed that up. Let's do that. It's in, out,
Down.
and down.
Down, in, out, up.
Oh, shucks, y'all. I got it down. And so when we're adjusting and looking at that too much treble, not enough bass, my tip to you, real talk, is to find your anchor points. Now, you mentioned that with your school, you had this impact club.
Mm-hmm.
And so can you just tell us just a little bit more about what impact is giving you, or something that's an example of what that's drawn out of you to help you balance this treble and bass? Because we're going to get into how to adjust in just a moment. But tell me a little bit more about impact.
So with impact, we have student leaders. I'm one of them. Basically, it's kind of our job to coordinate the events and then also just kind of be there for the rest of the student body. So if a student, needs prayer or whatever, and they're like, hey, Jordan,
Mm-hmm.
you're in their third period, can you reach out to them?
Mm-hmm.
And so for the student leader part, it's really just about having people around all the time for the rest of the students to be able to get in contact with. We also we call it our Jesus party.
Okay, a Jesus party.
The end of the year. And basically what we do there is we have food, we play games, and then one of the student leaders, or a few, if we choose to do that, will share a message.
Mm-hmm.
We also have baptisms at our Jesus party. So
Okay.
But yeah, it's just really cool to see my peers get their lives changed.
So do you have an example of like a life-changing, profound moment without, sharing anyone's name or anything like that, or something for yourself?
There's this girl, actually last year at our Jesus party, and she was like, I can't take this anymore. And I was like, okay, I don't know what that means.
Mm-hmm.
And then after talking to her, I kind of realized things weren't going so well with her. But to be able to talk to her and kind of get it together with her was a good experience for me.
That's awesome. So it sounds like the Jesus party is a way to spread the love of Christ, share some donuts, and give people of your age group a chance to talk to one another.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really powerful, because a lot of times we think that as adults, we have to be the anchor. We have to call the minister. We got to call the first lady. And so when we have an opportunity to sit hip to hip with folks that are our friends that we see in the hallways or whatever, I think that's powerful. And so kudos to you, and kudos to the Impact Club for all that you're doing in the lives that you're changing. When we come back, we are going to be talking about how do you adjust the treble and the bass to find your groove where you can jam in life. We'll be right back. again, welcome back to Real Talk, here with Dr. Rollins-Fells and my special guest, Jordan Rollins-Williams, who has been talking about this whole too much treble, not enough bass. And so now we're at the part of the show where we want to give you some practical tips. And so how do you go about adjusting the treble and bass? And so Jordan, on the car radio, what do you have to do in order to find that? Because it doesn't really show on the front screen.
No. So for ours, I press sound, and then it has a balance button where you can change, the ratio of treble to bass and where in the vehicle the sound's coming from. So.
Gotcha. And so we have to go into our settings in order to find the place to balance and adjust. That's real good to me. And so let's talk about that, viewers, because again, I promised you that I was going somewhere with this. And so my first tip, my first simple truth that I'd like to leave you with as you're adjusting the balance of your treble and bass is that your voice matters. I paused intentionally. That your voice matters. The beat of your own drum matters. What you feel and what you think and how you want to rock in life, it matters. And I think it's important, Jordan, that people actually hear that. So it's not about adjusting the treble and the bass to what other people like.
Right.
It's about adjusting it to what makes you comfortable. And so do you see that as a relevant and timely conversation for you and your friends?
Yeah. Not everything that they do is going to be something that I find entertaining. Not everything that I do is something that they find fun or worth their time, but it's okay.
And I think it's important to talk about respecting the balance of that. And so it's okay that I like something that's different than what you like. And so how do you strike that balance with your friends as you guys are making this adjustment?
Well, basically, if I'm interested in something that they're not, they understand that. And, vice versa, I understand that they're interested in things that I'm not. But we all just kind of lift each other up in that. So if I tell them about a leadership conference that I went to, they'll ask me, what did you talk about? Was it fun? Did you meet new people, kind of thing? And if they tell me, hey, I went to the football game, that's not something necessarily that I would want to do, but I'd be like, did you have a good time?
Right.
So.
Right. And then a second tip that I'd like to share is any time that I've ever watched Jordan conduct or been engaged in music, the music has a tendency to build. It's going somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And so, and when you were the drum major, how did you build that music?
So body positions, feet positions, hand movements. So if there was a crescendo, meaning to gradually bring up the volume, I would drop down, if that makes sense, kind of like squat, and then stand up straight as the volume would start to rise.
Like a this kind of motion.
Yeah.
Very good. And I like what she said there. And I'm glad you gave that answer. I didn't know she was going to say that, but I like that because with that positioning, we have to remember that as you're adjusting yourself, you need to put yourself in the position to get that ultimate sound that you want. And sometimes we just are not setting ourselves up to be in a position to get the end results that we're looking for. So I think that's cool. And now one of the tips and actual strategies that we use is to actually create vision boards. Because a lot of times with our mentoring programs, we find that our middle and high school young ladies for Divas with Promise and our young men in Men of Valor, they really need that future story. Future story is a term that we use at AHA Process with Dr. Ruby Payne that talks about seeing beyond the here and now. It is what traditionally is referred to as your 10-year goal, your dream list, your bucket list, depending on what phrase you're used to. And when you are looking at the music of life, and you're building and you're getting yourself in position and you're allowing yourself to hear your own beat of your own drum, it's also important to dream with that. And so part of Real Talk is empowering vision. And so, Jordan, have you done a vision board?
I have. It was a while ago, but... I did.
Good. And it's something that you should be revisiting. I have a vision board as well. And I can tell you that every now and again in life, I make it a point to go back, revisit it. There may be a different, the key may have changed. The tempo of life may have changed. And so I go back to that vision board and make sure that I'm anchored in it. So my tip so far has been that your voice matters. So run to the beat of your own drum. It's not selfish to do that. Create your vision board. And then the last thing is to create a SMART goal. So make sure that as you're looking at that balance and you're taking that treble and you're bringing it down and you're anchoring yourself, is that SMART goal something that aligns with what you said your anchor was? And you said our faith and God and that sort of thing. Because I think that will also help us to make sure that the music is the right kind of pitch and tone. Right? That anchor is key. Not everything is for everybody. And when you are a believer and a child of God, there's some things that other folks do that we just don't do. But that doesn't mean that we can't have fun. It just means that our music may be a little bit different. And so at that Jesus party, it's still going to rock out, real talk. But make yourself that SMART goal for what your music needs to look like at the end of the day. Make it specific, make it measurable. I like pop music. I like the beat. I like the R&B. I like the Harry Styles, whatever it is. And make sure that it's in balance and adjust it as you need to. Now, I want to thank Jordan for joining me on the show today. And as we always do with Real Talk, I want to leave you with a moment of celebration. And our moment of celebration today comes from Angela Ward with her In a Moment, where in a moment, anything can change. And the message that she'd like to leave is that the line between failure and success is often so fine that we don't know it. She thought that would be key today because we were talking about the line between that treble and that bass and finding just the right balance. And what she also says is, don't give up. Don't be afraid to turn the dial and make it sound like you want it to. And at the end of the day, Jordan can attest, we have no problem putting the sunroof back, turning the volume all the way up. She's laughing and just riding to the beat and the music of your own life. And so we thank you today for joining Real Talk with Dr. Rollins-Fells. Jordan, thank you for joining us and sharing our life experience and taking the transition. And thank you, audience, for sticking with me as we take the transition between the music realm and life and rocking it out. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time on Real Talk with Dr. Rollins-Fells.